Hey, good evening, guys. Got a report of no sound. How are we doing right now? Showing you the current map here. Let's see. I was talking with somebody on Skype here. We're going to do an interview with the developer of Weather Sim, which is going to be a pretty neat model for micro forecasting during the eclipse. So we'll check that out probably in the next day or so. But I was messing around here on the soundboard, and I'm not too sure. I must have hit a wrong button, but I'll get this all figured out. Okay, so anyway, let's roll the other intro and bring that up, and you can see a little bit of time-lapse. And we're going to see if the sound works or not. Little time lapse from about 1 hour ago, and you notice something very different. Let me know if you guys are able to hear the music on this. But this is showing something very unusual: outer cumulus layers, kind of a stratified layer. Bit of a different process working in the atmosphere tonight, and I've got a couple of charts set up especially for that. Let me go to those here. That's the digital atmosphere plot, and what we're going to look at though is the isotropic analysis, and we have not pulled these out since last winter. Okay, good place to go for isotropic maps is going to be College DuPage. Let me get this centered here. Okay, so we're looking at the top, you see Kelvin units. So that's temperature. Increasing temperature as you go to the right. Okay, well, if you look at a sounding in the atmosphere, it's going to look like this right here. And always what you'll see here is with increasing height, you're going to see the potential temperature increase. See these green lines? That's potential temperature, or theta. You can never have it drop as you go up with height, because if that happened, you would have an absolutely unstable atmosphere and it would overturn immediately. So this always increases with height, and if it increases at a very fast rate, that indicates we have an inversion, such as up here at the top. See, there's an inversion. That's the stratosphere. Tropopause located right there, and the units go up very quickly right there. So we cross that line right there. This line is crossed right here, and this line is crossed right here. So here's a very strong potential temperature gradient with height. So this is kind of tied a little bit to isotropic analysis. So obviously, when we start out at these cool units, that's going to be close to the surface. 285, that's not really valid. 290, this is what we use during the wintertime. And finally, when we get up to like 294, 296, now we're starting to get into the range where the isotropic surface is above the ground. So we see like 950 right there. Let's see, here's 1,000, so that's going to be about 300 roughly feet above sea level. And then what else do we have here? 850. So this surface here, this is going to be up at about 5,000. And this is shaped by the temperature profile in the lower levels. Now, we don't use this chart too much during the summertime because it's corrupted by all the convection taking place in the atmosphere. But if we go up a little bit higher, where things are a little bit more stratified, then we go up to higher levels. Okay, now this is important. See, we're all the way up at 305 Kelvin. So here we have 850, 800, 750. So we're going uphill in this direction. So here we have a very cold air mass, and the isentropic surface at this level is very high, 305 Kelvin level, all the way up at 600 millibars there in Quebec, which is about 14,000 feet. And you notice the wind on those surfaces are blowing uphill. So we're getting a little bit of isentropic ascent in the plains, in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And where you really see it, with that altocumulus layer right there, is on the very last layer right here, 310. We see 800, 750. This is getting up at about 8,000 feet. Still not high enough, but you can definitely see how the wind is blowing towards higher altitudes on that isentropic surface. So pretty ripe condition there for forming mid-level clouds. All we need is a little bit of that mid-level flow from a warm air mass to a cold air mass, which is what we typically see along a warm front. And there may be something like that at the surface, something like what I'm showing you right there. Okay, before we get too lost in some of the more advanced stuff, we've got Tropical Storm Gert moving north at 7 knots. I was kind of surprised to see that, and there it is, heading north and very strong recurvature. So not much effect there for the northeastern U.S. I tried to take a look at that with the Wilmington radar, and I guess that's just so far offshore, we're not picking that up. A little bit of air mass type thunderstorms inland in South Carolina right there. Not much to talk about right there. Tops on this stuff, about maybe 50,000. Very tall tropical storms. All right, let's see here. Not much going on in Texas, just a lot of that mid-level cloud. Thunderstorms throughout the south in Alabama and Georgia. And SPC reporting a few bits of hail here around Goodland and near Rapid City today. Overall pretty quiet. 250 millibar chart looking like this right here. Okay, we see something a little bit different here. We've got an omega block. Kind of like the Greek letter omega there. And that's kind of a self-reinforcing pattern because you can see that the flow kind of goes to southerly latitudes, dips into some of this warmer air, advects it northward, which kind of builds the ridge. That goes up into the polar regions, dips into cool air, and brings that south, building the trough. So that's kind of a stable pattern there, and what we need is a very strong trough coming from the west to break that up. In any case, we've got a pretty good trough there over British Columbia. Finally pushed the ridge out, and all those forest fires. Now we've got a different weather regime and hopefully a little bit of rain moving inland. Polar front jet definitely up in the northeast U.S. where we've been finding it pretty much all summer. Looks like we got the subtropical jet maybe right there over Arizona. I think that's probably a very tiny segment of that subtropical jet. And then the polar front jet coming on shore there in Oregon into the northern Rockies. There's the weather picture across the hemisphere. Looks like we got a frontal system in the northern plains. So that jet that we had coming on shore in Oregon, supporting that frontal system right there. And then that other segment across the northeast U.S. supporting this other front way off to the right side of the chart. And up to the north, looks like we've got another front maybe on its way south. Big 10-20 millibar high over, I guess, around Mold Bay, Banks Island. Let's check out northern Canada and see what we got going on. Okay, well, I see 70s up there. Let me see if I can stretch this out just a little bit. And there we go, pretty strong cold front for this time of year. See those northerly winds? That's kind of like the onset of winter here. 41 degrees in the afternoon with a stout north wind. Normally they're saying about 50 to 60 this time of year with kind of a light wind, and there's that divergent flow and even some thunderstorms being reported there on the coast of the Arctic Ocean. And down to the south, I think this is probably the frontal boundary running right through the center of the Northwest Territories there. So that's winter starting to crank up a little bit here. British Columbia, where we've had those wildfires, we've got much cooler temperatures, still reporting that smoke there in the Fraser Valley. Much cooler temperatures, and that means a little bit higher relative humidity. And let's see what we got going on elsewhere. Western U.S. looking pretty mild. We see 85 at Tonopah, 74 at Ely. So looks like we got a bit of a cold front coming south through Nevada. You can see the San Joaquin Valley here showing a little bit of north wind. Sorry, that's off the top of the chart. Okay, try that again. There it is, north winds there in the San Joaquin Valley, and I think that's probably a cold front right there. Coming right across the Nellis test range, Nevada test range, and into Fresno. And ahead of it, we see the distinct southwesterly winds with warm temperatures. So that's what they see a lot of times in the Las Vegas area, where we have a warm sector in place. Southwesterly winds and warm, dry conditions. So very active out there in the western U.S. And then to the central U.S., not much going on. A little bit of that easterly flow from the old cold air mass we had over Texas. But I think we've got maybe a little bit of a front, maybe through Texas right in here. You can see how warm it is, 100 degrees right there at Del Rio, 96 at San Antonio compared with about 83 in Oklahoma City and 82 in Amarillo. So definitely a front in this area, and no wonder we've got a little bit of isentropic lift across the area. Warm air mass in this region, cold air mass in this region. So if we have westerly flow, we're going to get some lift across that frontal surface there. Okay, then a quick look out in the eastern U.S. Well, I can see a little bit of the circulation there around Gert. Maybe in this area right here. And the tropical easterly flow has abated in Florida. Kind of a westerly flow there. And then up in the northeast U.S., cool as usual. 70s, and even much cooler up in Quebec. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of what's happening. There's a 250 millibar chart showing a little bit of that omega block. And you can see that it's very difficult to pick out. We need to go to that hemispheric analysis to really see that blocking pattern. So we're only seeing the base of that omega block right there. But there's the trough coming on shore. And let's see, we've got a little bit of troughing across Texas up at 500 millibars. 700 millibar chart also showing a little bit of troughing. This is probably a little bit more focused on the Mississippi River Valley right there. You can pick up Gerda right there offshore. And then 850, where the moisture feed is, starting to get more of a springtime pattern back. southerly flow off the Gulf. So the Gulf is open. Okay, we'll take a look at a satellite chart. Maybe we'll focus on Oklahoma. Let me zoom that out a little bit. You can see some nice overshooting tops there in Texas. This is around the Abilene area right here, and some pretty good overshooting tops around the Dalhart and Naravisa area of New Mexico. Lots of thunderstorm activity in the interior of New Mexico itself. So that's indicative of a trough out to the west, cold air advection, and a little bit of destabilization in that area. So let's focus on Nevada. We know that there's a front moving through that area, and wow, there it is. Looks like some definite weather going on right around Area 51 there, and Tonopah, Las Vegas located right here. So this could be around where the leading edge of the front is. Let me see if I can zoom that in. That looks very interesting. Normally we don't see weather quite that active in Nevada like that. Okay, so we're going to zoom in on Nevada. And we know that Las Vegas, located right here, look at that. You can see some lenticular altocumulus right there. This is just east of Mount Charleston, located right here. That's Mount Charleston. Las Vegas is located right here. So probably a pretty neat view if you go to a webcam. Maybe look for some of those cloud features there. And then I think this is probably a little bit of a dust storm coming in from Indian Springs and Mercury. Area 51 located right here. So very active weather there on the Nellis Range. And then we get further up to the north and you can see some standing waves. See these features here? These don't move at all. So they're kind of locked in with the topography of the mountains through here, the Kawich Range and out around Coaldale. So there's probably some pretty good turbulence there in the mid-levels. And then up higher, some very dynamic cloud features moving through. So this is some definite major weather for August. Yeah, this is pretty unusual. Okay, let's check out the polar orbiter data. We'll see how that front was doing earlier in the day. Waiting for the data to come up here. You can see Gert here off to the right. And I think we've probably broken up some of that smoke there with the change in the weather pattern. So here's British Columbia, where they've had all that smoke. Looks like we've cleared out a lot of that, and we've actually kicked that over into Manitoba. So now they're getting that, and that's definitely showing up on the surface analysis. You can see right here, a couple stations in here reporting haze, smoke. So now that is somebody else's problem. Then further south, earlier in the day, there's the front coming through Nevada. Las Vegas located right here. Let's check out Las Vegas. Yeah, man, it's pretty good. 1 or 200 miles up, you can see the outline of the city right there. So the Strip, located right here, you can almost see some of those strange tourist attractions showing up as an unusual color right there. And there's Mount Charleston. Do we have the gravity waves and the lenticular form setting up? Probably not quite yet. But things gearing up earlier in the day, definitely in that area. And let's check out Texas. Not much to see, just cumulus fields and a little bit of mid-level debris here. But you can see the extensive clouds in this area. And I'm sure some of the isentropic lift in that area helping to destabilize the atmosphere in that area. Thickness and pressure looking like this. See the the thickness lines right here? That's the frontal gradient. So front located right there through Nevada. Everything is consistent. And we can pick up the warm front, probably something like that, down into the central plains. Okay, let's see here. Moving on. Let's take a look at the sounding for Fort Worth. We've got a moist layer here. A lot of upper level clouds. That's kind of what you saw there on the time lapse. A little bit drier in the lower levels right there, but you can see some pretty good lapse rates from the surface up to about 10,000 feet there. So let's head into the forecast here and start looking at eclipse weather. So we're going to look at the long wave pattern here, looking at 200 millibars. This is up at about 40,000 feet. This is today. You can see the zonal flow, a little bit of a trough. Then over the next several days, trough moves inland. That starts affecting the high plains around Tuesday evening. There it is right there. A lot of lift and instability working into eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, Kansas. We might be looking for a little bit of thunderstorm activity in that area. So we're talking tomorrow night into Wednesday. Then the system moves out into the central plains on Wednesday, heading up towards Iowa and Minnesota. Another trough moving eastward on Thursday. Then we get into the weekend. We start building a ridge across the northern plains. Now we're getting closer to the eclipse time. That's going to be on Monday. So what do we have for the eclipse? Here's what we've got. This is the time of the eclipse. Looks like some definite ridging in the plains. We've been talking about that the past week, so things are matching up. I was talking about those signals of ridging in the plains, and it looks like we definitely got that, which means downstream from that, pretty good probability for clear skies here. Now, where we are going to have a problem, I think, if this pans out, would be in this southwesterly flow. This is kind of a ripe area, especially around the jet core. Jet core running like that, so I would expect there to be cloud material. Maybe running something like that. It could affect Nebraska, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But somewhere in the central plains, I think we should find a little bit of clearing. Now, Tennessee is downstream, but they do have a little bit of troughing through here. This is indicative of cooler temperatures in the mid-levels, which could mean a little bit more instability in this area. And combined with the higher elevation, the orographics of the Appalachians, I think probably the mountains are not going to be a good place to be. I think probably a lot of problems around Chattanooga and Knoxville, for example. And it looks like a little bit of a tropical system in the southern U.S., so I'm thinking we're probably going to be looking at some rain in this area right here. A little bit of troughing indicated here, so kind of what I'm thinking based on all this, probably a little migratory weather system may be moving through the upper Mississippi Valley like that, so there could be broken conditions there. Maybe clear skies in the Great Plains, not clear, but partly cloudy, and then maybe some clouds in the Great Basin and Western Rockies. I think this could be a problem area right there. Clouds along the Gulf Coast right here, and I think this area here, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, probably going to have some clear skies for that eclipse. Of course, Indiana, not underneath the totality area, but they're going to be near 90, 85% or so. Okay, let's see how well the models agree at the time of the eclipse. This is the global ensemble forecast system. I'm going to pull up the spaghetti plot so you can kind of get an idea of the certainty of the models. This is the 0-hour forecast. We're picking out 2 pressure lines, and you can see that there's very close consistency between different perturbations of that model. But as we go forward in time, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can see things start to fall apart. Saturday, Sunday, and then by Monday, you can see there is some uncertainty as far as mesoscale details. So we could have MCSs maybe moving. One area I'm concerned about is around Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. I think there could be something moving through this area, but we just don't know yet. But what we do know is there's definitely going to be troughing on the West Coast and ridging in the plains. So, yeah, this is a lot better than having the trough inland for those of us in the Central Plains. If we had a pattern like that right there, we would probably be looking at a lot of clouds in our part of the country. So, you know, it's certainly not good news for people in the Rockies there, but I think all things considered, we're actually doing pretty well here for the eclipse. Okay, short-term forecast, not a whole lot going on here. Diurnal storms dying out, a little bit of an MCS around Amarillo dying out towards morning. And the NAM has got redevelopment around Lubbock tomorrow, mostly in the higher elevations, and a little bit of storm activity there in the Dakotas. There goes the remains of Gert. And let's check out the GFS here. And before I go too much further, I might as well say hello to everybody in chat. I will tell you, things have been pretty busy here on the home front. We had, I'm out in the country here. We had the water pipe coming out of the meter break. So one of our neighbors had said that there was flooding on the street. So we're dealing with that. I came in from doing a little bit of digging about 20 minutes before the webcast. And just a lot going on here. Okay, David Moore checking in here, starting off the chat. 2 nights of MCS rain in the Metroplex. Yeah, there were a lot of storms there in northeast Texas and the DFW area. We got Michael Burrell, Sue M., Eddie W., Jeff Lockwood, Justin Pulliam. Got Ryan here. And Burl H. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody here. Ron Chalfont also. Jeff Lockwood. Music overpowering the voice. Okay, yeah. Sorry, just working out some problems here with the soundboard. Ryan mentioning an awesome live cam feed of a rocket flying over Tropical Storm Gert. Okay, I'll check that out. Thanks, Ryan. Little discussion about the Perseid showers, and I think that was over the weekend, so I think that's kind of tapering off. Ryan's mentioning a tropical wave in the far Atlantic. Could be our next hurricane. yeah, let's check out NHC, see what they got here. So we're going to look at the 5-day pattern. And I guess we're talking about these disturbances here. Yeah, so this is a good path to affect the U.S. when they're crossing the area around Puerto Rico like this. Typically, when they go through the Caribbean, there's a good likelihood they're going to hit Mexico and go into Central America, that kind of thing. But crossing this kind of trajectory, that could affect the U.S. here, possibly next week. So we'll see what happens. And then we've got this other wave. So we're slipping into tropical storm season. And Ryan says, a good amount of discussion about this next wave as it mixes with a large low off the west coast of Africa. Hello to Megan John, 72 degrees there in Minnesota. And Carl Berghoff saying hello. Thomas Copeland also joining. Carl mentioning a Difax chart with a cream-colored map. I think maybe you're asking about these maps, right? Yeah, this is from the Canadian Meteorological Agency there. And there's their, let me see if I can get this centered in here. Yeah, there it is, Environment Canada. 12Z for this morning there. It's a very nice 250 millibar plot. And Ryan says, look at the large low pressure system near the wave. Okay. And I think I'm pretty much all caught up on chat. We'll take a look at that wave. So we're heading out into the Atlantic, and yeah, a couple of systems moving off the African coast there, and we are expecting that to head towards Dominica and Puerto Rico and Cuba there. And there's one last look at GERT before we move on. Tropical storm there. Okay. So we'll head into the forecast and take one last look at the eclipse weather. And if you missed it, if you just joined us, the eclipse weather is about 5 minutes before this point, so you'll want to catch the replay of that, and maybe I can kind of paint this on as we go. So anyway, let's see what kind of pattern we have for this week. Wednesday and Thursday, we've got high pressure across to the Midwest right there, and there goes GERT. Low pressure in the central U.S. So we've got a southerly gradient bringing up moisture from the Gulf. And we're going to keep an eye out on the bottom right part of the chart for that hurricane to, at least I think it's going to be a hurricane to emerge there from Cuba. Moving into Wednesday, Thursday, we've got a couple of MCSs moving across the northern plains right there into the Great Lakes. A little bit of a tail end of the front through here around Saturday and Sunday. And then we get up to the eclipse date. And this is one possible solution to what's going to be happening. So this is not necessarily what's going to happen. This is just one possibility. You can see that there's high pressure across the Midwest. So that will keep things likely clear in that part of the country. And I did look at all of the GFS perturbations, and a lot of them were going, in fact, most of them were going for clear in this area. Where it's less certain, it is Missouri, Illinois, Iowa. This area here, this could be a problematic area in this particular GFS solution, looking for problems around Tulsa. Also, I'm a little bit concerned about the Appalachians here. But we might luck out with a strong cold air advection. That could clear us out, so we'll have to kind of keep that in mind too. There is going to be a mid-level system moving through the northern Rockies right here. You can see a little bit of shower activity breaking out right there. And by evening, there it is. I'm not too sure that the skies are going to be overcast in that region. I think it's going to be like scattered or broken. So I think most everybody should get a glimpse of this eclipse. And then for the remainder of next week, high pressure there in the Great Lakes on next Wednesday. Lots of troughing cyclogenesis in the Canadian prairies. So that's been a big change. So that's going to bring a lot of warm air northward. Pretty warm for Texas there, and kind of a stagnant pattern. Yeah, there it is. Hurricane or tropical storm something showing up on the 25th and 26th in Florida. And we're going to watch that for later in August. And if we do see a landfall here, we're going to run a special broadcast here, maybe run for like several hours and cover the landfall. Also at the same time, very strong cold air advection, the start of fall. Good cold front there moving through the northern plains. That tropical system makes landfall in the eastern U.S., apparently. And then here comes the cold front moving southward through the Great Plains. So we may get a taste of fall here in some areas around the 30th and 31st. Okay, I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you all watching, and let me get our music queued up and see if that even works. Yeah, there we go. Let me bring those levels down. Okay. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me bring up our closing shot, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, all.